In Black Myth Wukong, there is a secret ending that you can only achieve by going through very specific steps and going through very specific quest lines after you completed the game. I'll be going into more detail about all of this in this longer video so you can actually go through the steps as quickly as possible while also not missing anything. I'll be going through these steps as if you just started a brand new game, going from chapter 1 secret area all the way to the end and then after into the same playthrough. You'll see what I mean in just a minute, so let's get into it. Let's start in chapter 1 where you need to find 3 secret bells throughout this entire level to get to the secret area in this chapter. The first one can be found outside the forest, inside of the forest of the wolves location. I want you to follow the pathing that I'm showing you here on the screen because it's going to take you to a small mini boss fight that you have to complete first to be able to ring this bell. Thankfully, since this is at the very beginning of the game, the enemies that you're going to come across are not all that difficult, so you can easily run past all these enemies, and they will also not follow you into this boss fight, which is another nice touch. Now, this boss fight that you have to complete is also against another staff user, except this staff has a bunch of fire mechanics around it and he does attack you from different ranges. So just keep that in mind when you are fighting him. All you need to know though is that you need to defeat this guy, and when you do defeat this guy you'll actually be able to get his staff and also a brand new spell, which I won't spoil for you if you haven't gotten to this location yet. But now that you have defeated him, all you have to do is go to the back of this clearing and you'll see an item that is interactable. That's going to be your very first spell that you have to ring. Once you interact with this spell, you'll have a small cutscene that plays with a bunch of birds flying away from you because you're echoing throughout the entire forest, and you'll have some small dialogue. All you need to know is that you've completed 1 of 3 and you can now progress through the level. The second bell that you have to ring is going to be found near Snake Trail in the Bamboo Grove, just a little bit further into the chapter 1 level. Now this bell will be much easier to come across because it's actually through the main path you have to go to actually progress through this level, through the mini boss that I'll be talking about here in a second, and it's just a little bit off the main path. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. Make your way through the Bamboo Grove with the undead snakes and the living snakes until you get to a small clearing where you have to interact with a small boss that shoots electric balls of energy at you and also summons snakes to shoot poison at you. Not one of my favorite boss fights in this game, but it's something that you get to deal with. Now once you have defeated this boss, you'll see 2 different routes that you can go. One is through an archway with fire in front of it, and another one is allowing you to go up the hill. You want to take the path that goes up the hill because in the distance you'll see another little awning with another bell that you get to interact with. Same exact idea as the previous one. Ring the bell, you're going to have a small cutscene and then a little bit of dialogue to signify that you completed this. If you're doing these in order, this is of course 2 out of 3, and the third one thankfully is not very far away. And when I say not too far away, I quite literally mean the next section. You want to start from the Bamboo Grove Marsh of the White Mist location, the very first spawn point that you get for the White Mist, and as you may have guessed at this point, you're going to have to go down and defeat another mini boss. This boss is actually going to be one of the more tougher bosses you come across in chapter 1 in my opinion, so be prepared for a fight that has 2 phases on it. The White Clad Noble is definitely one of the more interesting boss fights in my opinion in chapter 1, so I won't say much more about the actual fight itself. I hope you enjoy the fight. I know I did, even though it took me a couple tries. After you defeat the White Clad Noble, you're going to start to notice 2 things. One, they start talking about the bells the very first time since you defeated him, and they'll talk about all 3. Thankfully, you've already got 2 of them done, and the third one is very close by. 2, once you ring this third bell, you will be automatically teleported to the next location. Now that you know this, from where you defeat the White Clad Noble, you'll see 2 different directions you can go. One is going to go into a cave up some steps, or you can go left towards looks like another cave, but a smaller one with some light at the end. You want to go to the path that's on the left. Now inside of this path, you're going to come across a clearing with a bunch of different wolf enemies. What you're also going to see at the back when you defeat these wolf enemies is going to be a bell that you need to ring. Once you ring this bell, you're going to instantly be teleported to the secret area. Once in here, it's very simple. Go through this entire area and defeat the secret boss. So once you go through and complete this secret area, let's move on to chapter 2. Now for chapter 2 secret area, you need to make your way to Fright Cliff Rock Rest Flat and actually go and find a particular board that starts a quest line. From here, it's a literal straight shot past a couple enemies into an open area where you're actually going to see a boar hanging out on a little area, small part of the cliff, whatever you want to describe this. He's very hard to miss because he's just sitting around, and what you're very quickly going to realize is that he is drunk. He's going to ask you to find something that helps him not be drunk, which can only be found later on through this chapter. Now this is going to be 1 of 3 items that you need to give him, so let me cover all 3 of them first so you have all of them on hand to complete this quickly. The first one is very easy to find. You just need to find Jade Lotus, which can be found in any water area inside of these plants. It just looks like like a lily pad, very easy to pick up. Second is going to be this gold piece, which can only be gotten after you defeat the first son of the Rat King in this area. I'll go into more detail in a little bit. And the final item is a sobering stone, the one we're looking for right now to sober up the boar. You want to make your way to Windrest Bridge. It's a bit of a tongue twister, so I apologize. Follow the pathing that I'm showing you here, or follow it loosely. You just mainly need to get to one particular corner in this small village that's going to have a glowing pot that is glowing gold that is going to have this sobering stone inside of it. Very simple, very easy. Now that we have the stone, we need to make our way back to the boar. Once you give the stone to the boar, he's going to immediately jump into some dialogue, basically saying that he wants to get some food because now he's hungry. What you're going to have to do is then teleport to a location that you've already been through to get to the sobering stone anyway. Now, to make sure that he is at this next location that I'll show you here in a second, make sure you exhaust all of his dialogue until he starts repeating himself. This is going to ensure that he does move when you do. Location number 2 for our friend is going to be the Crouching Tiger Temple, the temple entrance, which is the only one inside of this Crouching Tiger Temple. Nonetheless, make your way up the stairs, and before you go past where you fought the giant tiger, you go to the right where you can see the boar lounging around in the shade. What you want to do at this point is make sure that you have some Jade Lotus on your person. You could have used it for making medicine or other things. Just make sure you have at least one of the Jade Lotus. Continue the dialogue with him until he asks for the Jade Lotus. He will then continue having dialogue after you give him the Jade Lotus, which at this point he's going to describe a piece of gold that a brother of his used to have, and he's hoping to get it back to help you get to the next location, the secret area. He will then ask you to find this piece of gold and then meet him where you first met him on the little cliffside where he was sobering up. Very quickly, let's go and make sure that we have that gold mask to progress this questline. Now, very early on in chapter 2, you're going to come across the King of Flowing Sands and the second Prince of Flowing Sands. What you want to do here inside of this fight, you want to defeat the second Prince of Flowing Sands first. If you defeat the king first, the second prince is going to be a lot harder to fight because he gets enraged and hits a lot harder. But if you defeat the second prince, the king is actually going to run away, and you see him later on when he starts to summon the first prince. That's why I'm saying you want to defeat the second Prince of Flowing Sands first. It just makes it that much easier to progress the questline we're going through. So for the sake of this video, I defeated the second prince, and as you can see in this cutscene, the king is actually summoning the first prince. If you did defeat the king first and then the second prince, you'll still get something that you could throw down to summon this guy nonetheless. This is where it becomes much easier. All you have to do is actually defeat the first Prince of Flowing Sands. Once you defeat him, you will get that gold mask that the boar is looking for. So now that you do have the piece of gold that the first prince drops, let's make our way back to where we first met the boar, and it'll continue our questline once we get there. Now, when we return to the boar at Rock Rest Flats, he's going to think we actually stole the piece of gold from his brother and start a boss fight with him. Don't worry, fighting him is not very difficult. He's very easy and a lot easier than some of the bosses in this level. Once you do defeat him, it will jump into a very quick cutscene where he starts to show you the entrance of where you guys need to go to get into the secret area. Thankfully, the entrance is not very far, and as soon as you interact with this door, you're going to essentially be teleported into the next area after you go through a very lengthy cutscene. Of course, after this cutscene, you're going to be in this secret area, and just like chapter 1, all you have to do is complete this secret area and the main boss of the secret area, which I'm not going to show for you so you can enjoy it for yourself. Just know that once again, simply defeat the final boss of this secret area. That is going to signify that you have fully completed this secret area. So once you have this done, let's move on to chapter 3. Now, chapter 3 thankfully isn't actually a secret area, so it's going to be a little bit quicker, but it is a full side quest that you have to go through. It's going to be a treasure hunter side quest. From the north shore of the Bitter Lake fast travel point, follow the pathing that I'm showing you because this is where you're going to be first introduced to the treasure hunter. Now, it is a bit of a run away from this particular fast travel point, but you'll quickly come across a different archway, and then you'll see a giant building in the background. At this giant building, you're going to see an NPC being attacked by a couple of different enemies. All you have to do at this point is defeat those different enemies and then talk to the guy that you just saved. Interacting with this NPC is going to start that treasure hunter questline because this is the treasure hunter that you're looking for, and all you have to do is exhaust his dialogue and move on to the next location, which thankfully is only a little bit farther into chapter 3. Progress the chapter until you come across the Valley of Ecstasy Towers of Karma location. From here, it's a very short walk because you're going to actually hear the treasure hunter from this fast travel point shivering in the cold. Now, at this point, if you don't have the Ring of Fire spell equipped, I highly recommend that you do because it is necessary for this next step of this questline. All you have to do is find the treasure hunter and use the Ring of Fire spell in front of him. This will cue a short cutscene that will actually have the treasure hunter walking into this Ring of Fire to get warm. Of course, once you do this, you want to exhaust this dialogue once again to help move on to the next step of this particular quest line. For the next step, you want to backtrack a little bit to the Valley of Ecstasy Forest of Felicity fast travel location. It's going to be a bit of a long run to the actual cliffside that you need to jump down, so follow the pathing as best as you possibly can, dodging all the different enemies that you come across along the way, which I find very annoying depending on some of the enemies that you end up coming across. There are a wide variety of different enemies that you interact with inside of this long run, such as some ones that turn into actual spirits and some mini bosses if you go in certain directions. Nonetheless, when you actually get to the cliffside that I'm talking about, it'll be very obvious. Now, once you do get to this cliffside, it'll be a very easy jump down and across a fallen log, and once you get across this area into the actual valley that you see below you, underneath the log, you'll come across another fast travel point that you can unlock. This fast travel point is in the Valley of Ecstasy called the Melon Field. Now, at this point, you're going to very quickly run into a boss fight, which is actually going to end up being with the treasure hunter. All you need to know is that this is necessary to continue into the secret ending. I'm not going to spoil that actual boss fight for you, just know that you need to complete this. You will also get a very unique spell after you've completed this small quest line, but again, all we're focusing on right now is how to get to the secret ending. And now that you've gone through this particular side quest for the treasure hunter, let's move on to the next secret area. To start, make your way through chapter 4 until you come across the Webbed Hollow Upper Hollow rest point. From here, we need to go and fight a very specific boss that's found lower inside of this level. Now, getting to this particular boss is going to take you through a very long pathing, so do your best to follow the pathing I'm showing you here, but thankfully this path will also show you another fast travel point, so you can start from there if you already have that unlocked. You can skip forward inside of this video to get to that particular fast travel point, but for those that don't already have it, make sure again you follow this pathing. You're going to come across a lot of different enemies. I highly recommend just running past them, because at the end of this you will see that there really is a lot of different enemies that are going to be attacking you along this path. Now, even though there are a lot of them, they aren't all that difficult to defeat outside of maybe one or two that might give you a little bit of trouble if you're not caught up level wise or material wise to have the good enough armor to deal with the heavy attacks that they're throwing at you. Once you get to this small pond with a meditation point, you know you are very close to the second rest point, the Webbed Hollow Pool of Shattered Jade location, and also very close to the boss that we're looking for. From this travel point, you're going to see a hill with a bunch of cocoons on it. This is where you're going to need to go. Simply run past all these different cocoons, and as soon as you get to the back of this room, you're going to see a very large cocoon. This large cocoon is actually going to start talking to you, and all you have to do is keep hitting it until you have the boss arrive outside of this cocoon. This enemy is going to be the Venom Daoist, and all you have to do is simply progress until this boss runs away from you. You're not going to be able to fully kill him until later on inside of the chapter. This is where we're going to need to go next after you defeat this guy. And this next location is really far into the chapter, right near the end of the game actually. Make your way until you get to the Temple of Yellow Flowers Court of Illumination. Now, from this travel point, you want to backtrack until you go through another set of gates that take you higher up the mountain. Now, thankfully, there isn't a whole lot of enemies around here, but there is going to be a particular point where you come to a crossroads where you can either go right or you can go left further up the mountain. You want to take the left path. This path is going to very clearly open up into a boss arena, and of course, you're going to be greeted by the Venom Daoist. All you have to do at this point is defeat him. Once you do defeat him, he's actually going to point you to a very specific mural on a wall. As you probably guessed at this point, this is going to be your entrance into that secret area that we're talking about and going for inside of chapter 4. Thankfully, going into this area isn't a one-way trip, just like all the other secret areas. As soon as you enter and find a rest point, you can travel back here. But for the purposes of this video, just like all the other secret areas inside of this game, all you have to do is go through and defeat the final boss. Yes, there are several different bosses in this particular Purple Cloud secret area, but that is not one of the requirements to actually get the secret ending, just completing this area itself. So now that you have gone through and actually completed this secret area in chapter 4, let's move on to the final secret area inside of chapter 5. As soon as you enter into this level, you're going to come across the Woods of Ember Ashen Pass 1. This is going to be your very first fast travel location. Now, from this location, you obviously just want to progress the level like you normally would until you come across this big area where there's a bunch of people fighting, and you're going to quickly come across a hill where you'll see the Pale Axe Stalwart fighting an enemy. All you have to do is defeat him in one-on-one combat, or just defeat him in combat in general, to have him stop fighting long enough to actually have a conversation with you. If you can't interact with him right away after you do defeat him, make sure all the other enemies on this lower area of this first section of chapter 5 are defeated. That will allow you to actually interact with him. Now, the conversation you have with him is pretty straightforward. He tells you about 5 specific carts that you need to destroy that will allow you to get into a very specific cave. Thankfully, the very first cart that you're looking for is actually just up the hill where you're actually talking to him. Now, this very first cart is very easy to defeat. There is also a ledge above the cart that you can jump onto and get behind this cart to make this fight even easier for you, but defeat this cart any way you want to, and let's move on to the second cart location. For the second cart, progress the game until you get the Height of Ember, Woods of Ember fast travel point. From here, you're going to need to continue on the main path of this particular chapter. You're going to very quickly get interacted with a boss that is going to be blocking a pair of doors. Once you defeat the boss, you can now go through these doors. Once you're through these doors, you're very quickly going to be attacked by the next cart that we're looking for. Now, there's two ways to actually get down to this cart. One is actually going through a whole cave system, defeating a bunch of enemies and going the long way, or if you have enough health, you can actually jump off the bridge right in front of the cart. Either way, it's up to you. Now, actually defeating this cart is not very hard. The only annoying factor of this fight is the narrow path that you have to fight it on. Outside of that, once you defeat this cart, we can move on to the third location. You can find the third cart in the Furnace Valley, more specifically the Valley Entrance fast travel point. Now, something to make mention is that you don't actually need to fight this particular cart. It's actually already going to be defeated. I'm including in here so you don't get confused that this is one of the 5 that you need to fight. So the easiest way to look at this particular cart is that it is already defeated. You don't have to do anything. Though the person that's inside of the cart is part of a much longer quest line, which I'll have a video on as soon as I can publish it. But again, count this as a defeated cart, and let's move on to the fourth location. Now, this fourth location is actually impossible to miss because it's right after you go through a main boss battle inside of this chapter. So all you have to do is defeat that boss, which you have to do anyway to progress this chapter, and go up the hill to find the Crimson Silver cart. Once again, this cart is not going to be all that difficult, though he is going to be a little bit stronger than the first 2 carts you actually had to fight. So keep that in mind when you're going against this boss. Once this cart is defeated, you want to interact with our bull friend once again. Now, if he isn't here, you may want to go and reload the area, rest and save, and come back to this particular point, or you may need to go back to the beginning of the chapter and interact with him there to make sure he moves to this particular point. He may also not be here if you didn't exhaust his dialogue at the first location, so make sure you go back and do that. I've seen a couple different bugs that people have run into with him transporting to these different locations, so I want to make sure I mention them here. Whenever he does finally make it to this particular point inside of the game, make sure you exhaust his dialogue once more, and then we can make our way to the 5th and final cart location. Progress your game even further until you get to the Field of Fire Ashen Pass number 3. From here, it's going to be a very long run because you have to get rid of a firewall and also a giant metal ball that can one-shot kill you. In your first playthrough of this chapter, in this particular section that we're running through, you're going to have a giant metal ball that is going to try and run you down, and you need to jump out of its way. All you have to do is progress to the very end of this path, and the metal ball will be taken out. Now, at the same time, there's also going to be a lot of fire around this area. One particular spot that you'll be going through to actually get to the cart has a wall of fire. As soon as you take out the metal ball, the wall of fire will also be taken out. So it's a 2-for-1 deal. You know you're in the right spot when you see a giant slope going downhill. All you have to do is progress this entire area, this extra section, until you get to another fast travel point. Now, there's a lot of different stuff in this area that can easily distract you, sidetrack you, and also a bunch of different mini bosses that you can interact with and easily die from if you're not prepared. So just keep that in mind as you're watching this pathing. My recommendation is either take your time and defeat all these enemies, get those extra levels, or speed past every single one of these enemies to get to the next fast travel point. And thankfully, when you get to this next fast travel point, it is going to be right next to where you need to defeat the final cart. This particular fast travel point, if you're coming back later on in the game, is called the Field of Fire Cooling Slope. And from this cooling slope, all you have to do is progress forward to where you're going to see a giant cliff face with another giant cart right in front of it. This is obviously going to be the final cart that you need to defeat. Now, I'm not going to spoil this actual fight for you, but just so you know, this is by far going to be the hardest cart you are going to fight inside of this level. Once you have defeated this final cart, you will see our bull friend on the edge of the arena. Interact with him to basically complete the quest line that you just went through. Now, at the same time, he's going to point at the giant gate at the back of the arena that you need to go and interact with. Interacting with this giant ice wall, this giant door, is going to open up that cave that we're talking about. Inside of this cave, you can see a couple different things. What you want to focus on is a giant pillar. Interact with that giant pillar is going to take you to the actual cave that we're looking for. Now, just like the other secret areas, I don't want to spoil the actual big boss fight inside of this secret area. Once again, all you have to do is go through, which thankfully inside of this chapter, it's very straightforward where you have to actually go inside of this secret cave. But again, just complete this secret area and you'll have the completion that you need to go to the secret ending. Now, with this secret cave done, let's move on to the final chapter. And thankfully, this next step is very straightforward, yet not as easy to do as you might think. All you have to do is complete the game. You have to beat the game to actually move on to the next step of the secret ending. A little bit different, I know, but that's how they designed this secret ending inside of Black Myth Wukong. So I'm going to do my best to not spoil anything in this chapter so you can experience it for the first time for yourself. Just know that the ending of this game, the final boss, is very, very difficult. It's going to be by far the hardest boss that you've ever come across inside of this game so far. Now, once you have beaten the game, and I cannot stress stress this enough, do not enter a new cycle as you're going to see on the starting screen. You want to hit continue journey because you want to start from the very same journey that you were just in, that you just completed the game on. This is necessary to get to the secret ending because inside of the same game that you just beat, it actually unlocks a different area, a different secret area that you need to go into and defeat a very secret boss. Now, to access the secret area, you actually need to transport back to chapter 3, the Pagoda Realm Snow Veil Trail, and I want you to follow the pathing that I'm about to show you very closely because it's going to take you to another location that you may not have come across the very first time you went through chapter 3. Don't worry, there's not really any big enemies along the way, but it'll be very obvious that the location that you're looking for is going to be right in front of you as soon as you get close, and it's going to be called the Great Pagoda. Now, as you enter the Great Pagoda, you're going to very quickly see that there's a bunch of different murals inside of this pagoda. It's going to depict all the different chapters that you've already completed inside the game. Make sure you also visit the fast travel point that allows you to fast travel to this point if you need to go back and forth for any reason. Now, you remember in chapter 6 when you get the Monkey King's actual armor set, you want to make sure you have that equipped and make your way up to the very top of the Great Pagoda, and you're going to see a very familiar character from chapter 3 just waiting for you, staring at a blank wall. As soon as you get close to this character and this blank wall, you'll start getting thrown into a cutscene, kind of signifying that you have done everything correctly to get to the secret ending. Now, at the end of this cutscene, you're going to be transported into that secret area that I was just mentioning. Don't worry, when you get to the secret area, there are no other enemies besides the secret boss that you need to fight, and thankfully there's also going to be a fast travel point waiting for you. This secret area, in case those that go back and forth from different areas, is going to be called the Secret Mount Mei Meijiang Peak. This is where you're going to fight that secret boss that I was just talking about. This secret boss is absolutely necessary to getting the secret ending. You have to defeat this boss to unlock the secret ending. Now, obviously, I'm not going to show it for you at this point so you can enjoy it for the very first time yourself. So I wish you luck against this boss. This boss gave me the most trouble out of the entire game, and it's arguably the hardest boss that you're going to ever encounter inside of this game, depending on if we get a DLC later on or not. But let's say at this point you have defeated this particular boss. Let's move on to the final step to get the secret ending, which is very ironically just to beat the final boss of the game once again. Obviously, it's the very end of chapter 6. It's the boss that you remember from beating already earlier on throughout this video, and I find it very funny, but it makes sense if you go back and understand the lore and the original story that this game is actually based upon. Now, the secret ending is a completely different ending cutscene that I'll let you enjoy for yourself after you defeated this main ending game boss once again. But in a very long video, that is the exact process that you need to go through to actually get the secret ending of Black Myth Wukong. It's a phenomenal game. I have a blast going through this game, even a New Game Plus. I hope you guys enjoyed this game as well. Also, let me know if you guys enjoyed this walkthrough guide by hitting the like and subscribe buttons down below so I know that you did find it helpful. Let me know your favorite part of the entire secret ending or the secret boss fight to get the secret ending down in the comments. I'm very curious because I still hold a little bit of hatred for that final secret area boss. Once again, I hope you guys found this location guide, a walkthrough guide, very helpful, and I'll catch you in the next video.